Yo, what's up? And I'm joined with my good friend Elliot the Dragon Compton. Elliot is a multiple Muay Thai champion, Sawadee Cup. Multiple Muay Thai champion signed to the prestigious 1FC tournament. How you doing, bro?
I'm good, thanks, bro. Thanks for having me on. How's things with you?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Like I was saying, I've been recovering from an injury, which has stopped me throwing any kicks for a few months, but I'm on the mend, getting back into training. Life's good. We're all right here in New Zealand. Like it's a drag with the whole COVID thing, but I feel the government's done a pretty good job of managing the worst of it.
Yeah, man, that's the same with us here in Queensland, bro. I know like Victoria's doing it tough, and I feel for those guys, but we're pretty good, man. We're pretty lucky. Like we're still training every day. We're still running the business. We did close for 3 months, but now we're back open. Been open now since June, so man, life's good, bro. Like, I mean, it sucks we can't travel, we can't see our friends internationally or interstate, but man, like things could be a lot worse. So I'm grateful for that, you know.
Yeah, man. I was talking to my friend Chris Romulo, who used to run a gym in New York City. He lost his gym, he had to move out of New York State. Like,
Yeah,
it's
right.
hard parts of the world. Is
Savage.
Yeah, it's real savage, bro. Is the state government look after you guys? Do you get like funding? You know, like, if you're a gym chef for 3 months, obviously you're not earning. So do you get like a subsidy over there?
Yeah, so it's through the federal government though. So it's called Job Keeper. So there's two. There's Job Seeker, which is for people that lost their jobs completely, and then they introduced a thing called Job Keeper, which was like for basically if you have a business with employees, they will pay you. I think it was like 80% of the median wage, and then if you're a sole trader, that you get the same payment. So it worked out at like 750 a week before tax. So I mean, it's not like it's not going to like leave you rich after, but it's enough to kind of keep you afloat and like keep your business open at least until things kind of settle back down. And I'm super grateful for that help, man. I know a lot of countries haven't had that, and like you said, like a lot of people they're really struggling, man. So I think our government's copped a lot of abuse over the last 6 months, but I think that they have done a lot of things really well, particularly for small business and like kind of keeping that economy going. I mean, Victoria is probably a different kettle of fish, and I can't comment on that. But for where we are, man, like we've been pretty lucky, bro. Like I talked to some of my family back in the UK and friends in the US and whatever else, and it's like, man, that's some dire situations, Whereas here the sun's shining, and I trained this morning, worked, and here I am talking to you. So things could
Yeah,
definitely be a lot worse.
I like your PMA, my dude. Strong, positive mental attitude coming through. Are you taking PTs and shit over there?
Yeah, man. I was back to back this morning from 5:30 onwards, and then I trained, and then I finished early to do this call with you, and then I'll pick up my daughter, and then we'll go to the beach because I live like on the water pretty much, and then that's my Friday, man. Finishing the week
Living the
strong.
dream. People
Yeah,
gonna be
bro.
watching
Yeah,
this
man,
in other
I am,
parts
man.
of the
Like
world. They're gonna
I
be
got
like real salty. They'll be like, "Yo, fuck this. What is what is it? This is making
for
me sad,
real,
and jealous."
for real,
Um,
man.
so what's up, man? How long have you been doing Muay Thai for? The people want to know.
Well, I started training like when I was a kid, bro, with my old man. Like literally, like obviously he's trained in martial arts his whole life, and his father before him, so it's like multi generational. And man, I just remember watching him train as a kid, and all I ever really wanted to do was do the same. So I begged and begged and begged as a kid, and they took me to his gym, and I joined the kids class there when I was like 4 years old. Uh, to be honest, I was probably a little bit too young to really do the class like how it was meant to be done, like at that age. So his instructor at the time said, "Look, just wait, bring him back when he's 5." So in that year, I just trained at home with my old man, and as you do as a 4 year old, like I'm not saying like I was like some Shaolin monk or nothing, but like we just trained and it was cool. And then when I was 5, I joined the gym for real, and then just kind of just found my groove from there, man. Obviously I had like ups and downs, but I never really took any sort of break from training. I just loved it, man. Like forever, like as a teenager, that's all I really did. Along with playing in bands and playing music, but I was always training and doing something. So here I am now at 31 years old. So what's that?
It's
27
27
years,
years. It's basically your whole life.
bro. It's the only thing I've ever known, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That's amazing. I didn't even know you. I mean, obviously, I've met your father, but I never met your grandfather. What martial arts was your grandfather involved in?
Yeah, so he actually passed away when my old man was quite young. So I mean, obviously I never got to meet him either. So, but he trained in a bunch of different forms of karate and kempo, and man, you got to think like that was back in the 50s, bro. Like things were a little bit different back then, you know. So yeah, that was kind of like his avenue was down the karate track, and then when my old man was training, he dabbled a little bit in the same sort of thing, and then moved into more of a kung fu background, and then we moved out to Australia, and then kind of just progressed into where we are now.
Wow. Yeah, because your father's done Salat. He's got, black belt jiu-jitsu, obviously Muay Thai. He's a
Yeah,
really, really multi-dimensional, I don't
he's
know,
an
hub of knowledge.
encyclopedia, man. It's crazy, bro. Like you think like you said, like he's done the Salat, he's done the shoot boxing, shoot wrestling. I remember him training with Eric Paulson back in the 90s, back before MMA was even really a thing, you know. He's done all the Filipino martial arts. He's, man, like it's crazy. A lot of like Taekwondo and Hapkido sort of stuff from his first instructor in Australia was a third or fourth degree black belt in Taekwondo, and but then also did everything else with it, you know, with the Muay Thai and everything. So I think that's what kind of like lends me my different style to what most Thai boxers have, because we'll just pull things out of nowhere, man. Like a lot of the sweeps that I use in Thai boxing is taken from a Salat background. People don't really realize that, which is actually really cool because a lot of people don't know that. But recently, one championship shared of me sweeping, like a video of me sweeping my old man. And you can see like all these like Indonesian accounts and like they're all commenting, go, "Oh, that's a Salat technique." And it's like, yeah, man, that's sick that you guys are like picking up on that. You know, it was cool, man. So yeah, it's crazy the amount of things that he's done and achieved, and I would need to get him on my podcast so we can get it out there. But he's that older generation that doesn't like to talk about the things that he's done and achieved. You know, he's too humble for his own good sometimes. And but yeah, man, it's crazy, bro. I
And
remember
you
being in the
run,
Philippines watching him fight dudes on the beach with sticks and like live blades, and it's like I actually found some GoPro footage the other day of him doing some like crazy shit, man. And I'm like, and we were there doing it together, but he obviously there's levels to it, right? So it's like, man, I should put it all together and like upload a video. And I mean, he wouldn't want me to. I know he wouldn't. He'd be like, no, that's me, you know. But yeah, it's crazy.
you should do that. It's really nice to hear a son talk about his father so in such complimentary terms.
Yeah,
So you run your gym together, right? Team Compton Training Centre.
yeah, bro. Yeah, it's
And you guys have got some top level guys coming out of there. Who's in your stable?
yeah, man. Well, I think the thing with us is we're a little bit different to like a lot of different clubs or gyms. Is like we're kind of like an eclectic group of different people that come from everywhere, you know. So like we got guys that will train at their own gyms and come in and train with us. We got guys that purely just train with us. We got so like for example, Damian Brown, he trains with us. Stewie Nickel, XFC champ, Aaron Blackie, Matt Seaton works and trains with us. Jaden Binney, you might not know who he is yet. He's a amateur MMA guy, but multiple jiu-jitsu champion. His jiu-jitsu is next level. And then on top of that, we've got an Italian guy, Marco, who comes in. We've got a English guy who's actually got like a full contact sport karate background, Barney, and he's really really good, man. A couple of boxers, like a guy called Thomas. You wouldn't know who he is yet, but man, he's brilliant too. So like we kind of got like all these different people that have come from like different backgrounds and different gyms, and we all just kind of just catch up and train together and help each other, and kind of just it's not so much of a team, so to speak. It's more of a community, you know, and it's like it's refreshing, man. It's cool.
It is really cool. And so just to clear that up, are they all based at your gym all the time now, or they still continue to go to their home gyms and they come together with you guys?
Yeah, so basically, man, we all train together pretty much every day, but you know, like we might do 1 or 2 sessions with like at our gym, and then they'll go and train at their own gyms, and then come in the afternoon or in the morning. Another guy, Dom, another sick jiu-jitsu guy who's like still an amateur MMA guy, but you know, he trains with us, but he also trains at base with Damo, and he trains at another gym, and then comes in and refines his skills, and kind of just like it's like I don't even really know how to describe it. I guess just like a common place where people with common interests just link up and train and just build on our skills together, and we exchange ideas, and just like I don't even know what you call it, man. But yeah, you get.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure. I'm trying to figure out the terminology too. It's cool. And when the eclectic group of people fight, do they fight under Team Compton Training Centre or they fight under their respective gyms?
Both, both. So they'll like say, for example, like Damian Brown, he'll fight out of Base Training Centre, which is his gym that he owns. But then he'll also fight out of Team Compton, and then with his grappling instructor Dan Higgins too. So he's kind of like he'll fight out of all three clubs.
Yeah.
Jaden and Matt, they fight out of our club exclusively. I mean, they work with us, like they're part of the staff, you know. There's a few other guys like JJ. He fights out of another gym, but then still represents us at the same time, if that makes sense. So it's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to explain, but it works really well for us, and it works really well for, you know. I think the mentality of like you have to just train with these people is cool if that works for you, but that doesn't work for us, and we like to be open, man. We've got an open door policy. Anyone from anywhere in the world can just come in and train, spend a week, spend a year, spend forever, fight, like represent us, fight out of Team Compton if they want to, use us for our skills, learn, share some of their knowledge, and then go on and continue with their journey too, you know? So there's no like expectations of this is what you have to do, or, you know, like literally, man, we're just a bunch of professionals that catch up and train together and try and improve each other, you know? It's a refreshing energy.
Yeah, I really like that attitude. I was like that throughout my humble career as well. I mean, obviously my core gym and stuff. My main coach for the biggest body of my career was pretty old school, and he'd be kind of grumpy about it. But you know, I'd be like, "Yo, this is what I'm doing," and like, I don't know. For me, it was like I needed the intellectual stimulation of training in different environments as much as the different inputs into the techniques and the different knowledge that we've shared. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course, man.
You do something for 20 years, you can get stale, and I think it kept me in the sport longer than had I not been like that. If you know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree, and I think for us, man, like. So my old man, he trained at Dan and Nasanto for a long time. I don't know if you know who he is, but
American.
yeah. So and his rule. So my old man was actually a certified instructor under him, and his rule was if you train with him, he wants you to have 3 to 5 instructors outside of him. So you know, like one of the most famous Bruce Lee quotes of all time is the responsibility of a teacher is to protect his pupil from his own influence, right? So it's like if you're like, this is how I do it, and it's very easy to say, well, this is the only way. But what works for my old man, for example, is a short, stocky sort of fella versus what would work for me, who's tall, long, and rangy. You know what I mean? If I just follow, this is what you have to do, then I don't know, you know. And it's easy to kind of just follow a set pattern and a set routine, which when you're a bit more open-minded and you train with an eclectic group of people and you like swap ideas, or well, I think you should do this. Well, I like this part of what you said, but I like to add this. And they go, oh, I've never thought of that. And then someone else says, yeah, I do that. But what I do is I come forward with my right instead of my left. And then he goes, oh yeah, but I would counter that with, then before you know it, it's like it starts steamrolling, you know what I mean? So I think that's where the influence comes from, I think. Yeah, and I mean, like we've all been doing this a long time, man. You know, there's no ego with us. No, there's not even ego. That's disrespectful to other people. It's more like there's no. It is what it is. You know, like we're professionals.
You're not protective of your knowledge. You know.
Yeah, man. That's
like,
probably the best. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like we're here to share. You know, like take it or leave it, and
for sure.
I like that approach. I think it's a good approach to take. You know, like there's no like golden 1-inch death punch that you're giving the secret away to that's going to turn everyone into like a natural born killer, right?
No, exactly. I think when you look at
work and it's dedication and at a certain level, anyone can beat anyone on a given day, right?
Absolutely, right. And it comes down to your mindset and how you train. And I mean, what we do might not work for some people. You know, they're like, no, I don't like that. I just need to know that this is my set routine. This is what I do. I know I show up at the gym at this time and I do exactly this. And these are the processes that I follow. And man, and that's totally cool for you. You know, whereas we're a bit more open-minded. I mean, obviously, like we still have rules and guidelines of what coach wants us to do and whatever else. But I think it's just, like I said, man, like most of us, if not all of us, have like accomplished at what we do in some area, you know, whether it's Thai boxing, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, MMA, whatever it is, like we've all competed at high levels before and we know what it takes and we know what is expected of us. So it's a bit more like we're a bit more self-sufficient, despite like obviously my old man's like he's a coach and he tells us this and he like manages us, so to speak, and make sure that we're doing the right thing. But at the same time, there's still an expectation of us to be responsible for ourselves at the same time, you know. So that's how it works for us, you know.
Yeah, no one's going to hold your hand in the ring cage.
100%. Yeah.
There are people watching this if they're martial artists or combat athletes who'll be like, too many cooks in the kitchen though.
Yep.
It makes a messy recipe.
Yeah,
What do
for
you
sure.
think about that?
I don't know, man. Like, I'm a huge fan of GSP, right? And if you look at GSP, he has Faraz Zahabi, who's like his head coach, right? But then he shoots down to New York and he trains with Renzo Gracie and John Danaher, you know. Then he'll train with Phil Nurse, and then he'll go and train with his old karate instructor, and then he'll go and train with John Wayne Parr, for example. Then he'll go and train with like Roy Jones or whoever, you know, like a high-level boxer, and then he gets all these different pieces of the puzzle. And for me, this is like, we grew up like training Jeet Kune Do, which is like the Bruce Lee, it's not a style or system, but like the concepts, you know? And the concept is absorb what is useful, reject what is useless, and add is what is uniquely your own, right? So for me, I like that resonates with me so much. So like, if you think boxers have the best punches in the world because that's what they do, yeah. Muay Thai athletes probably have the most powerful kicks because that's what they do. Wrestlers obviously have the best wrestling because it's what they do. Jiu-jitsu guys obviously have the best jiu-jitsu, and so on, you know? So if you can take the best from this and the best from that and the best from this and the best from that, and then you have someone in the middle that says, yeah, cool, but let's like take this bit but add this, and helps you formulate it into your own style. And then you're like, yeah, but I find that this works for me based on that. Now all of a sudden you're getting the best of everything, and it's open, you know? But I know that doesn't work for everybody. You know, not everybody wants that. Some people want to be want to show up to the gym and have coach say, do X, Y, Z, and do not do anything else. And that's cool for them. But I don't know, man. For me personally, and for the guys that train at our gym, I mean, we've had guys that don't like that, guys that have said, look, it's not for me. I want to try something different. By all means, man, do something different and come back. Come in once a week if you want to. Come in whatever. Like, come in once a month. Come in once a year. Who cares, man? Like, we're just a bunch of dudes, a bunch of mates that train together, you know? Like, that's it. And we learn from, in my opinion, and everybody else in our club, obviously, an incredible martial artist with like decades and decades of experience of not just martial arts in a traditional sense, but has trained hundreds of fighters and has cornered thousands of fighters and has seen it all, you know? So like, we all just draw on that experience and add it to our own individual journeys, you know?
Yeah.
So
you've mentioned mixed martial arts a lot. You've always competed in Muay Thai, but are you looking at doing what everyone else is doing and transitioning into being an MMA athlete?
Man, I think I battle with it, man, because part of me says yes. I mean, I've been doing jiu-jitsu since I was a young kid. I mean, I'm a brown belt now. And I wrestle. I do all the MMA sparring with the boys when they got fights coming up, you know. Like today, for example, I wanted to prove a point to the young guys. So I did 10 rounds of kickboxing sparring with them. And then I also did 10 rounds of shootboxing / MMA sparring with them too, you know, which is a lot. I wouldn't normally do that, but, you know, like, but for me right now, where I'm at in my career is my eyes are firmly fixed on winning that one championship Super Series championship belt. That's what I want. I want the kickboxing belt and I want the Thai boxing belt. Once I've achieved that, then we'll see what happens, you know. In my opinion, I'm only a couple of fights away from the belt at most. I think if I win my next one, I'm ranked number 5. If I win my next one, that might put me into some sort of contention. So that's where I'm at. But like I said, man, I've never taken my finger off the pulse. So once I've achieved what I want to achieve, if I feel like, you know what, I want to keep doing this and I want to try a different avenue, maybe I will. I'm not ruling it out, but I'm not saying yes either. You know, I'm just kind of like, I'm on the fence, man. What will be, you know?
Sure. And you're young, man. Like, the game's evolved so much that 31 is young for being a combat athlete. That's looking back, you know, I retired from my little career at 33, and I look back. I mean, I guess it wasn't how I was living my life, pain to live, but I do kind of reflect. I'm like, oh, yo, I could have fought for a few more years, you know? So you've got
Yeah.
a whole future ahead of you to start a new career, should you so desire it.
Yeah, for sure. And man, there's an MMA clause in my one championship contract. So I've got like, uh, it's set up for my Thai boxing career, but they can also offer me MMA fights at any minute too.
Sure.
So man, and I've said to them before, I'm open to whatever as long as it makes sense to me. I'm down for whatever, man. You know, like I've always said that I'm a martial artist. You know, Thai boxing is what I do, but yeah, I wouldn't say that my heart's in it right now, but who knows, man? We'll see.
Yeah, sure.
I just
For
feel like I've got boxes left to tick, you know, before I
yeah,
start trying to
exactly.
transition, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for a young kid who's out there and they've had 3 or 4 amateur fights and they want to get into a tournament like 1FC or they want to get into 1FC, what's the path that you recommend? Or how does a kid in Australia or New Zealand or anywhere get into a tournament like that? Do they think they need to move offshore and train at a big famous camp in Thailand or something like a lot of people do? Or do you think it's possible to do it from a homegrown place?
I definitely think you can do it from a homegrown place, man. You know, like when I first started like fighting professionally, we weren't from a big camp, you know, we were just pretty much father and son with a few other people that were involved with us. And you know, like we fought through the ranks, you know, like we went from fighting on the local circuit, on the smaller shows to the medium shows to the big shows, and we went overseas. I fought in Thailand, I fought Lumpini Stadium, then I fought for Kunlun Fight. And then we were in talks with some of the bigger promotions like Glory and a few others. And then, man, one championship came to me and offered me a contract, and there we were, you know. So we went through the whole thing. And I think so. I was listening to this podcast with Liam Harrison recently, with Jordan Watson, and it really like hit a note with me because I only was just saying the same thing to somebody recently where now that like the UFC, One Championship, Bellator, and Glory are so accessible to people now, whereas for a long time it wasn't as common that people from this neck of the woods or whatever, particularly in Thai boxing, man. Like when you were coming up, like I guess Evolution was like the biggest show at the time on this side of the world, and it was like that was that was the pinnacle, and it was very hard to get to. Whereas now it's kind of like to a degree you can be in the right place at the right time, you know, and I think a lot of people tend to focus on that, you know, and like that's their goal. And I think it's good to have like a plan and things like that. But they were saying on this podcast that a lot of these young kids now they miss the experiences on the way to getting to that, you know. So they skip a huge chunk that a lot of people go through, particularly in Thai boxing. I think MMA is a little bit different, but you mean like fighting in like stadiums in Thailand and like, you know, having like the Thais come up to you and like laughing at you and grabbing your arms, and you know, it's like such a bizarre experience sometimes when you're fighting literally in a tin shed in the middle of nowhere, you know, and there's like thousands of Thais screaming, and you know, so I think for me, my advice would be don't focus. It's the cliche, right? Don't focus on the destination, you know, focus on the journey, take the opportunities, invest in yourself, you know, like, yes, you can do it from a homegrown gym and do it, but also don't be afraid to travel. You know, travel. You don't have to go and base yourself out of another camp or whatever, but just go and see the world and fight different people, train in Thailand and fight Thailand or whatever it is, you know. But really just take time to enjoy the journey along the way, because all of a sudden you'll blink and you could be 30 years old and all you focused on is getting into the UFC, and maybe you're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to make it now, and you haven't actually enjoyed. Like, man, I've got so many stories that I can tell my daughter when she gets older of like fighting in Thailand, and then, you know, like I weigh in against one guy and then I get in the ring and it's a completely different dude in there, and you know what I mean? Like
I
so
do, I
many,
do know what you mean.
yeah,
Yeah.
like so many, like at the time you're like, what? Like in hindsight now, man, it's like, man, that was so much fun, you know, like it was so raw and it was so real that it's easy to just skip that or like think that that's not important. And whereas to me, it is very important, man, you know, and it's like, I think that would be my main advice. Just invest in yourself, get out there and like back yourself, but take fights that, you know, maybe on paper you shouldn't take, but, you know, get out there and just test yourself, you know, because you see time and time again, right, guys, that, you know, their main objective is, I want UFC or ONE FC. So they're like, well, I can't lose because if I lose, I'm never going to get signed. So they take these fights that like they know they're going to win, and then they jump from like middle of the local circuit with an unbelievable record to bang fighting Yodson Clay in one championship. And it's like there is a big disparity in skill and experience there. And if you're not ready for that, you're going to get hurt. You know what I mean?
I do know. Yeah, I did that.
Yeah, man, we've all done it, 100%.
Yeah, like I was telling you when I was talking to you once, I went from like being sort of top level amateur over here to fighting Greg Foley back in the day after he'd come off a narrow loss to Wayne Parr and he'd been, you know, fighting in Japan and all this sort of stuff, and he smashed my face in.
Yeah.
But a good experience nonetheless.
Yeah,
you
for
know?
sure, man. And I mean, no one ever wants to get their face smashed in. And I'm not saying go out and get your face smashed in, you know?
But take some calculated risks from time to time.
Yeah, and sometimes just like don't be scared to test yourself. Is probably what I'm saying, you know?
Yeah,
don't set yourself up for failure, for sure. Don't get yourself like don't try and fight Yodson Clay after 10 fights, you know? But like don't be afraid to take those fights that you're the underdog or on paper you shouldn't win, because for those fights, that experience that you'll gain could be worth 5 or 10 fights from that one, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's important. I think it's lost, you know, a little bit these days. And I think it's important that people find that a little bit, you know?
Yeah, totally. You do a lot of sparring with Wayne Parr still?
Man, we haven't sparred in a while because of his hip, you know. I was just talking to him the other day. I think he's just waiting to get the all clear from the doctor, and then we should get back into some sparring, which will be cool. He's obviously just signed I think it was a 6-fight deal that he signed with ONE Championship.
Whoa.
So, you know, I guess it's...
I thought he might have had a single fight contract, given that he retired after that amazing Mundine win.
Yeah, he did. But I think he had to retire because of his hip. Whereas I think he's like, I mean, I don't want to speak on his behalf because I don't know the ins and outs. But as I understand it, I think the hip maybe wasn't quite as bad as what was originally thought.
Sure.
So he's had surgery, and I think now they're like, man, you've still got it left in you to have more fights, you know? I mean, he's been around the game a long time. He knows what it takes to compete at that level. So, and he's smart, man. He wouldn't put himself in for something if he knew that he couldn't cope with it. So, man, I'm excited to see where that goes. So hopefully once he gets the all clear from the doc, we'll be back full steam, you know, and now we're both fighting for the same organization. Could be cool to kind of get ready together and spar, and yeah, man, it'd be cool.
That's cool. It must be frustrating for you sitting there like, you know, like kind of on the bench.
Yeah, man, it is. But I guess if the only thing you've got to complain about in your life is that you want to fight and you can't because there's a pandemic, you're doing pretty good, you know? But from a career point of view, absolutely, man. I signed the biggest fight of my career like 3 weeks before we went into lockdown. Not even 3 weeks. It would have been like...
Can you tell us who that was?
Yeah, so I don't know if I meant to, but YOLO. I was supposed to fight Nikki Holskin on April 10th in Jakarta on the biggest show of the year for ONE Championship.
Wow.
Which, man, that's a dream fight for me. You know, Nikki's like that guy that everybody watched. Man, I remember like guys that weren't even into like kickboxing from MMA background saying, bro, you got to watch this guy, you know, like you watch what he does. And so for me to be able to like not all of a sudden, obviously it's a lot of work, but to get to where I am, but like to like be facing across the ring from the dude that was like the pinnacle, and like he's only 35 or 36 years old. It's not like he's like 102 years old and still fighting when he shouldn't be. He's still like at that peak level. For me, it was like, yeah, cool, man. This is what it's about. You know, this is what I've worked so hard for. And I think stylistically, I'm a tough matchup for him, you know? So to then go from that to like, all right, bang, you're in lockdown now for the next like 7 months sort of thing. No fights. You can't get out of the country or whatever. Yeah, it's a kick in the teeth. But like I said, man, I'm healthy. I've got to spend some amazing time with my daughter and my wife. You know, like if the only thing I got to complain about is I didn't get to fight, I'm doing all right, you know. But having said that, my knuckles are like the itchiest that they've ever been, man, because it's like I haven't stopped. Like my old man lives, like even when we're in lockdown, my old man lives 2 k's from me. So like literally, man, we trained every day together. Hitting pads and just making improvements. And I did a lot of like rehab work on not that I had injuries, but I had things that needed strengthening and whatever else, and fixed a lot of holes in my game. So I'm really ready to showcase the improvements that I've made. So I feel like it's going to be a new Elliot Compton when I finally step back in that cage and showcase where we've been. I think the main thing that I really learnt in lockdown, and the thing that I really want to showcase when I fight, is I worked on my mind more than anything during lockdown. I think a lot of people did. It doesn't give you there wasn't a lot else to do. So I feel like mentally I'm the strongest that I've ever been. I've had a rough couple of years in different ways. So I feel like I've grown a lot from that, and I've had like also amazing year this year with the birth of my daughter and things like that. So I feel like mentally I'm just in a completely different place, but also physically, because my mind is in a different place now too. Not that I was ever mentally weak, I don't think, but I don't know, man. I just feel different. So
How's being a father changed how you approach training, how you approach your career? And congratulations. I mean, I've told you congratulations personally, but here's a public congratulations.
yeah,
Becoming
hey, thank you, man. Thank you. It's crazy, man. She's like nearly 9 months old already, bro. It's like, but I think it's just for me, like I've always just taken it one fight at a time, and I've always just been like, until such time as I don't want to take another fight, that's me done. And I'm still of that opinion now. I think the difference is I can really provide a future now with fighting for a major organization, which is something that I've never had before. I can really provide a future for my family, both in fighting and outside of fighting. So I guess I've taken a lot more of I've always super professional, but I don't know. It's really hard to explain. I don't know how to express it into words, but it's I guess the intensity of my training has changed, and I feel like there's more pressure on me to succeed and to make sure I come home in one piece. Because obviously, I mean, I want a healthy life with my daughter. I don't want to be like scrambled eggs by the time I'm 40. So I'm like. So there's a lot of, but it's also made me hungrier for success, because I want to like set a good example of like, if you set your mind to something, no matter what it is, you can achieve it, And I think fighting is like the thing that I can do that. Whether my daughter goes to be a fighter, I mean, that's her choice, but I think it's a good metaphor for anything in life, right? There's always going to be setbacks, there's always going to be challenges, but if you can rise to meet those challenges and overcome them, man, you get it. You're a fighter. Anyone that's ever fought says they've learned so much more about themselves from fighting than they have from anything else, And I think it's a good way to showcase how to push yourself to achieve great things, And I think that's where I'm at now. I'm like, I guess to put it, man, I could talk underwater with a mouthful of marbles, bro. I think the best way to put it now is I'm thinking about legacy now. I mean, I'm only 31 and I get that, but I'm thinking about what's going to be my story and what's going to be my legacy. So when my daughter types my name into Google, she sees, all right, cool. Like not just the things that I've done in the ring, but the effects that I've had on other people's lives outside of the ring through fighting. And I think that's where I'm at, I don't know. It's a long-winded answer for a short question, but that's me. Yeah,
I've made a career out of long-winded answers for short questions. Hey, so the hardcore scene has been a part of your journey into adulthood, huh?
Yeah, man. I grew up in the Brisbane hardcore scene, and it lended me a home. Growing up, obviously I always had a healthy family life. But I don't know. I've always just felt like I belonged in that hardcore scene, and I've got some really cool memories from growing up in that, and yeah, it's cool, man.
Is it because you always felt like a bit of a misfit, like like the stereotypical story? Well, it's not even stereotypical; it's a true fucking thing. Like you didn't fit in with the other kids at school, so you found like a counterculture to belong to.
Yeah, bro, 100%. I still don't even really feel like I fit in the fight game, man. You know, I've always just been like that weird kid, you know, that sits at the back of the bus and doesn't talk to anyone. You know, I've kind of always been that guy. So I think hardcore for me, I finally found people on my same wavelength, you know, that only really cared about music. And I don't know, I think like when I first really started going to hardcore shows, I probably would have been like 14, maybe ish, 13, 14, something like that. And just felt, I just felt home, you know? So I definitely think that was, like you said, it was a counterculture, but there was like counterculture to the counterculture at the same time, you know? It was like, yeah.
Yeah. What sort of bands? You played in bands too, huh? You played bands?
Yeah, I played in a few bands growing up. You know, did some cool stuff. You know, we were never like major, but we did some cool stuff. Played a few like little tours and things like that. But yeah, I was more like the guy that was there loving every other band, you know.
Singing along, jumping off stage, and no one wanted to get in the pit with you in case you actually kick them.
Spinning elbow someone in the pit.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, I've seen that happen, man. I remember I was at the show in Boston. I don't know if you remember that whole FSU crew. It was like this really kind of violent crew from that scene, man. It was bad. Like it was a bad vibe, you know. Like people were getting like knocked out and smashed with all those windmills and that crazy shit that everyone used to do.
Yeah.
You don't really see that so much anymore when I've been to, I guess, the metalcore hardcore shows over in Australia, which
it's very different.
A bad thing.
No, it's very different from how it used to be. Can you hear that noise in the background? Is that just on my end? It's like a white noise.
No, I can't.
No, okay.
I can hear my kids' cartoons, and I'm like, can you hear that cartoon?
No, I can't. All right, that's cool.
That's good.
Sorry, what was the question again? I got
we were talking about
mosh pit.
The violence in the whole fucking mosh.
Yeah, it's definitely changed a lot. I mean, I'm getting old now, man. I don't really go to hardcore shows like I used to, but I remember like the last few that I've been to, I was like, this is not what hardcore was to me, you know. It was, I don't know, like it seemed like kids at hardcore shows these days wanted to sit outside smoking more than they wanted to be inside watching the bands, you know.
Right.
And then when they did come in and people would like throw down or whatever, it was like no one, like people just wanted to fight each other, you know. Whereas back in the day, like people would throw down, but a fight would only happen if people didn't follow the right etiquette. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
there was like a full etiquette when it came to like throwing down and like spending time at hardcore shows. And like you had your different crews, and man, like it was, that's how it was back then. And it was like for us, there's like the Byron Bay kids, and then there's like North Coast hardcore, and there's like River City hardcore. And but like, man, like there were some big brawls back in the day, and like some of them got pretty vicious, but it was always like justified, you know, at the time. Whereas like these days, it's just different, man. I don't know. Like I remember seeing Antag play recently, who are like one of my all-time favorite hardcore bands from this side of the world, and they put on such an incredible show, but I just couldn't vibe with the crowd. It was just different, man, you know. And I don't know. It's changed a lot over the years.
Yeah. We don't even have a vibrant hardcore scene in New Zealand anymore. Like,
I don't think we do here anymore either, man. I think it's watered down a lot.
Yeah, I think you have a really strong like metalcore scene. You know, like if you have to put labels on everything. You know, like you've got huge bands over there like Amity Affliction and stuff.
Yeah. Bro, I remember seeing Amity like all the time back in the day, like when it was like literally like 20 people in the room, you know, and it was like, and same as Parkway, man, like.
Yeah, Parkway are enormous.
Yeah, and it's like now it's like, man, I remember Amity before Joel was even in Amity, you know.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, it's like such a long time ago, and it's like to see them now like playing these sold out River Stage shows and touring Europe, and it's cool to see how far it's come on that level. But I think on a smaller level, it's kind of diminished a little bit, you know? It's like...
Sure.
Yeah.
Like the community, the sense of community and belonging, perhaps, isn't quite the same as it used to be for you.
Yeah, for me, but that could just be the fact that I've grown out of it. Maybe if you spoke to someone that's like 15, 16, they'd be like, man, what are you talking about? This is the best thing ever. Do you know what I mean? So it could just be a different wavelength now in life or whatever, but who knows?
Yeah, no, I mean, fuck, I'm older than you, man, and I noticed the same energetic shift as you, I suppose. But then again, like you say, we're at a different stage in life, and I do hope that it is continuing to be like a safe space where kids can come and be whoever they want to be and let out some feelings and find kids on the same wavelength of like minds, and it's kind of like a shelter from, I don't know, the mainstream noise that we're all swimming through all the time, you know?
Yeah, for sure, man. I think especially like as an adolescent, man, it is a good escape, The same as like it doesn't necessarily just have to be hardcore, man. Anything, like going to the gym. So for me, like I always had hardcore and I had the gym, and in a weird way, they seem to go together. Do you know what I mean? And for me, they kind of still do. But yeah, who knows? Things have changed, maybe.
And what else do you have going on outside the gym? You do a little bit of motivational speaking.
Yeah, man. I obviously with COVID, I haven't done a lot. I've done stuff with the Salvation Army, disengaged youths over time. I really like that, man. I think it's a tricky one when you talk about disengaged youths because the general consensus from the higher power is it's their fault, and it's not always that simple. It's not always that straightforward. So to go and I remember, I think I've told you this story before. I was talking to a bunch of kids and they had a police officer there. And the idea was I'd smash pads for a couple of minutes and like get these kids' attention. They see like me, like tattoos, cap backwards and whatever. They're like, oh, this guy's kind of like us, like you'd probably get the same, right? So anyway, then I was supposed to start my talk at this thing I did recently. And then this the guy that was organizing comes and goes, oh, this police officer wants to talk first, if that's all right. And I was like, yeah, okay, cool, whatever. And he pretty much got up and told these kids that they're just pieces of shit. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to do anything unless they get themselves back in school. Stop being so selfish and this and that. And I was like, you could just see these kids just switch off one by one. And I was like, man, this just is not cool. So anyway, it was my turn to talk and I got up and I was like, so thanks. I can't even remember what his name was now. Thanks, old mate. Thanks for your talk. But for everybody else, fuck that guy, And you can see all these kids were like, oh, shit, And like I fully brought him back, and someone that like one of the organizers actually reached out to me recently. He's like, "Man, there's been a good handful of kids that have completely turned their lives around. So some of those were like fresh out of like detention. Some were going to detention. Some had like parents that were addicts. So I just pretty much just spoke to them. I dropped out of high school when I was young, and everybody told me that I was going to be nothing. Except for my parents, thankfully. But friends and parents of friends and whatever else." And man, I made something of my life through hard work and passion, and I don't see how anyone else can't do that. If I can do it, anyone can do it, Yeah, sure, we've all had our struggles and our battles, and I've had help along the way. I don't discredit that whatsoever. And some people don't have that same help, but if you look for it, you'll find it. So, and I think that's kind of just the message that I tend to share, and I tell fight stories and how I've overcome adversity through fighting and broken bones and broken will and picking yourself up from ground zero and fighting for what it is that you're passionate about and what you believe in and what you love. And for a kid when I was growing up, I was pretty quiet. I loved playing music and writing music, but I was never really out there. Whereas now I just love talking to people and sharing the stories that I've experienced and the things that we've overcome over the years to get to where we are. And I'm not saying like I'm some sort of superstar and I'm a millionaire. I'm not like Gary Vee, I'm just a kid from Brisbane that never stopped believing in what I wanted. There was times where I didn't believe in myself for sure. And I still have those times now, even at 31 years old, fighting on the biggest stage in the world. I still have times where I doubt myself, But I guess for me, my message to a lot of these, like particularly when I do the disengaged youth, is there's always someone that will believe in you, and you just have to find those people and surround yourself with those people. Because when times get tough, and time gets tough for everyone, man, like it doesn't matter whether you're Elliot Compton, Richie Hardcore, Conor McGregor, Israel Adesanya, it doesn't matter, man. Like everybody has tough times, but it's the people that are around you that will help get you through that until you get that belief back in yourself, you know? So I think that's really the main thing that I love doing. I've done some like motivational speaking with businesses and things like that, which is like rewarding too, you know? Like I think a lot of people discredit just because you work in a white collar job that you don't have struggles, you know? But I just find when you can put a smile on a kid's face and help a kid completely change their path is a really, really rewarding experience, you know? It's cool.
Yeah, word, homie. How do you think all the city kickboxing boys are gonna go next week?
Man, it's hard to bet against them, bro. You know, like you look at the amount of experience in that team, like not even just in the athletes, but in the coaching staff. It's not like people say, oh, it just kind of popped up out of nowhere. But if you're from this neck of the woods, you know that it didn't just pop up out of nowhere. You know that there's decades and decades of history and experience on local level all the way through to international level, right? So when you add that with the warrior mindset that all of those guys have and the championship like athletic mindset, not just the warrior, I think that's an unbeatable formula, man. I think they're all going to clean up this weekend. I can't see any of them losing.
You're
Do they
calling
have
sweet. I like it.
do they have tough fights? Absolutely, man. But this is the thing with them, and comes back to what we were saying earlier. It's not like any of them haven't had hard fights before. They haven't been in the trenches. They haven't had wars. They haven't been broken, bruised, like lost. They've been there. They've seen it all. They know how to manage it, right? So now that they're at that elite peak level, they know exactly what's expected of them and exactly how to control their emotions towards that, right? But you only get that from experience and time in the ring or the cage or on the mat or whatever, you know. So that's why I find it hard to see that anyone's going to beat them, because I don't think that. I mean, look at Israel, bro. What's his kickboxing record, like 95-4 or something ridiculous like that, you know?
Yeah, it's me.
And fought killers. You know, it's not like, oh yeah, but who did he fight? He fought killers. It like Simon Marcus, for example. You know, like he's fought everyone, man. And same as Brad. Like I'm not sure what Brad's kickboxing record is, but I know that it's extensive. And you look at who he's.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of fans in the UFC don't understand is like dudes like Brad and Israel have these enormous kickboxing careers before they made it to the UFC, and dudes like
Sure.
Shane and Kai. You know, I remember I used to commentate like a small show over here. Kai was like fighting when he was in high school, like full on MMA, like smashing people. You know,
Yeah.
they've all got these enormous backgrounds prior to being on the world's biggest stage, and I think a lot of fans, particularly casual fans, forget that they're weathered people, man. They've made it stone.
They're seasoned professionals, you
Yeah,
know, for
yeah,
sure. And it's like yeah, oh, it's an overnight success. Yeah, but maybe because you've only just tuned in yesterday. You know what I mean?
yeah,
But like for sure, you know, what I mean, you got to think that Israel wanted to go to MMA because what was there left for him to achieve in kickboxing? You know
yeah,
what I mean? The
yeah.
dude, in my opinion, he won that glory
Seasoned
heavy.
professional is definitely a nicer way of describing it than weathered people. That makes it sound like
Yeah, but I know what you
it
mean. You
makes it
know?
sound like on their fourth marriage or some shit.
Yeah, but yeah,
Sorry,
for
sorry,
sure.
boys.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
and same as Brad, you know, like Brad had pretty much achieved everything that you could in kickboxing, you know, short of winning that glory title at the time, because one championship wasn't really as big as it is now. Um, what was left for him to achieve? And now look at him, he's in the UFC undefeated, you know, and I guarantee when he was signed, he's just a kickboxer. You know, kickboxers, you know, like, you know, they can't live in the UFC. These guys, you know, you see like Gokhan Saki had a rough run, and, you know, like, oh yeah, but it's you know, that's why kickboxing doesn't necessarily translate. But like, what was Israel 10-0 or something in the UFC now, in the middleweight champ? You know, like minced everyone. Brad, Kai, Shane Young. Shane Young's another killer. You know what I mean? But again, has a full resume of fighting on the regional circuit, and you know what I mean. So I think for me, that's how I see that they're an unbeatable force at the moment. I can't see anyone beating that. I don't see anyone with the same experience.
yeah. They never stop improving. Do you know what I mean? Like they don't rest on it. Even Israel, like that dude is like he's blessed. Like he's got things that you can't teach,
For
But
sure.
even he never sits on those laurels. Like he's always in the gym, working, 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 just like all of they take their time off. That's hard earned.
Yeah,
But
of
when it's
course.
game time, like they're in there working all the time. They never, you see some guys get to a world class level, and then they will go start their own gym, or they don't want to coach above them, and they don't have anyone telling them what to do. But all of those guys have stayed humble and listened to the experience around them rather than getting too big, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually going to question you on that, but you already answered my question. Do you think that a lot of that is them as individuals, or do you think it's because their coaching staff will not allow them to sit on their success and think that that's enough? Or do you think it's a combination of both? Obviously, because you've got a good relationship with a lot of those guys. I only know them from an Instagram screen, really, so it's
I
hard to
think
tell. But what's
I
your
think it's a
opinion?
bit of I think it's a bit of both. Like the guys in the gym, like so Doug Viney and Eugene Beerman, who are the owners of City Kickboxing, and then Mike Angove and Trishima Pikatoa and all the other coaches in that gym, like they don't let those dudes get too big ego wise, you know what I mean? Like they
Yeah,
give
for
them
sure.
shit, they give them a hard time if they're not at training or if they do, like they don't they don't shy away from being a boss, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like and to the credit of all those high level athletes, like they don't mind being told,
for
like
sure.
obviously I'm not in those relationships, but I'll be hanging out with someone like Brad or whatever, and he's like, ah, fuck Eugene, blah blah blah, busting my balls,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
but that's why they're successful, you know what I mean?
100%.
Like
Yeah,
when you're a successful athlete, I think you can get a bit of an oversized ego because everyone's like fully fucking blowing smoke up your ass all the time and gassing you up, and you believe all the fans, man. But those fans aren't going to be there when you start losing,
for
right?
sure. And those fans aren't going to be there when you're staring across from Paulo Costa, for example, and he's put in a mean camp, and you've been like, you know what I mean? Like for sure. And
Yeah,
do you reckon that's a cultural thing? You reckon that's like New Zealand being, from what I've found anyway, from like hanging out with you guys and things like that, a lot of the Kiwis that I know, they're a very humble race of people, right? So do you think that you got to pay homage to like the culture of New Zealand on that as well, or do
yeah,
you think because you don't see a lot of like top level athletes in the US with that same mentality? You know what I mean? It's a bit more of a superstar status, whereas is that a cultural thing where you still see like these top dudes still mopping the mats after training when you're watching embedded and things like that?
yeah. I think it kind of is, and it's kind of like a twofold thing because I think we're too self-effacing as a culture. Like we put
Mhm.
ourselves down a lot, and
Yeah,
Israel's the exception to that. Israel's swagger and confidence. That's who he is. That's a real person. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's not bragging because it's true.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
for sure. Yeah,
And but all the other boys, yeah, they're super low key. Like they still come and train with all the regulars at City Kickboxing, and they have this pretty amazing grounded team culture, which I think yeah does come from the New Zealand's broader cultural identity, which is to just be chill and to be humble. But that said, I do wish more broadly people in this country we have what we call tall poppy syndrome. Like we try and
yeah,
cut down the poppy that grows the tallest. It's kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
it's a bit of you might call it like a hater nation. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but man, I think that's the world over these days too, right? I think like particularly with the influence of social media and things like that. Um, I mean, I saw recently that Angela and Christian Lee, from one championship, two champion brother and sister, their 16-year-old sister just got signed, and she got so much hate, and so did one championship because she's 16 years old, but she's a killer. You know what I mean? She's 16 years old, she's professional, and she's a killer. So it's
Well,
like,
I'm hating on her with that. Fuck, she's not ready.
yeah, like, oh, why would you sign a 16-year-old over like XYZ or whatever, And it's like, well, I think like going back to what you're saying there, like tall poppy syndrome is not necessarily just a country by country thing. I think we live in a generation now where somebody else's achievement sparks some sort of uh, insecurity in you because you're like, oh, why haven't I done that? Why didn't I? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And it's like,
massively. I
yeah,
think really successful people and how social media can kind of amplify their success. You kind of become a mirror, or people become not me, but like people become a mirror, and then people don't see they don't like what they see reflected back at them,
mm,
and it's easier to like fucking have a rock at a mirror than do some work on yourself. It's like
yeah, for
being
sure.
like try going to a party sober, right? Everyone tries to get you to drink. It's Israel calls it crabs in a pot or crabs in a bucket. Like one crab's trying to get out, the other crabs will get their pincers in that motherfucker and like pull him back down.
Yeah, yeah.
I really think that is yeah, you're right. Like it's definitely a social media phenomenon, and it's definitely something that is a one of the I love Aotearoa New Zealand, but it's definitely part and parcel of living here. And I think social media has made it exponentially worse.
Yeah, for sure. I remember years ago I was studying like to get my certifications to become a personal trainer to get like insurance and things like that. And at the time I was only young and I remember thinking this is like the most bullshit thing that I've ever had to listen to because I'm here to learn how to train people, right? But now that I'm a little bit older and I look back at it, I think, yeah, it's like a little bit corny, a little bit cliche, but if you were young like I wasn't, had I been a bit more open-minded and listened to that, far out, man, it was on the money. So it was this story about campers, climbers, and pullers, right? And I was like, oh, here we go. So the campers are like these people that's like just set up camp at the bottom of the mountain, and they're happy. They're happy, just like just chilling. They don't have any real desire to get to the top of the mountain. They're happy sitting where they are, and that's cool. And then you got the guys that are climbers that just all they want to do is just climb to the top of the mountain. They just like that's their goal. They don't care what it takes. They don't care how tired they get, how much they lose along the way. That peak is all that matters to them. Yep. And then you got the pullers that are like, nah, bro, you're not doing that because I can't do that, you know? And the moral of the story was you got to make a decision. Do you want to be a camper, climber, or puller? And if you decide to be a climber, then you need to get rid of the campers and you need to get rid of the pullers and just surround yourself with other climbers. And I was like, now that I think about that metaphor, I'm like, that actually makes a lot of sense. But when you're like 18 years old, you're like, this is some bullshit. I'm here to learn how to bench press. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but man, like
Yeah, bro.
yeah,
I've seen that a lot, man. Like, a lot of my work has been around alcohol and drugs, and I grew up with an alcoholic dad, and I've always been around that sort of crazy shit. You see it, man. Like, people want to change their relationship with drugs, who've got a drug problem, whatever. They have to change who they hang out with, man, or they're going to get brought back down.
for sure, man. I get it. You probably got this when you were fighting, right? So, I mean, I don't drink anyway. Like, I might have a beer with dinner here and there, but I'm not a drinker. But so you go out to a party or whatever and you're sober and someone goes, just have a drink. You go, oh, no, I've got a fight coming up or, I don't. Oh, just one. One won't hurt. So this is my argument, right? So, okay, if one won't hurt, why would I have one? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they go, oh, but to be social. Okay. Well, what is that? It's a fizzy drink. Okay. Well, give me a Pepsi Max or give me a Coke Zero. I'll have a drink with you. No problems. Why does it have to be a beer? Because you feel uncomfortable that you're drinking beer and I'm not. Let's call a spade a spade. You know what I mean? That's what it is. And I think that is like a real common thing, particularly like you're saying about when you go to a party sober and it's like, and that comes back to what we are saying before with like Victoria Lee. It's like when you don't do something, it makes or you do something, you achieve something or whatever, it makes other people feel uncomfortable sometimes. And I think that's a generational thing now. I don't know, man. I don't want to talk shit on our generation because I think we're blessed in so many ways, but we've got a lot of work to do in other areas too.
Word,
Yeah.
I do. Hey, Elliot, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you for, I don't know, giving me an hour of your time today, man. Anything you
Thanks
want
for
to
having
share
me,
with?
bro.
Oh, it's a real pleasure. You were genuinely an inspirational person.
Oh, thanks,
And
bro.
so
I
I
appreciate that coming
appreciate
from you. That's cool.
No, for real, man. I'm not talking shit. Anything you want to finish up on? Anything you want to share that's burning a hole in your heart?
Not really, man. I'm pretty blessed, bro. Like, I think going back to what we were saying earlier, like, I not meaning to talk shit or rub it into people that are doing it tough, but just you've asked me, so here we are. Like, I think for me at the moment, I just everything in my life is perfect, bro. The only thing that's missing is getting to fight some dude on the other side of the world, you know, which like that like puts a fire in my guts for sure. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm just stoked with everything in life right now, man. Like things could be better, but things could be worse. And I think that's the beauty of life, right? So I guess, I don't know, man, like to go down that motivational speaking point of view, I think if I had a message to leave at the end of this podcast or whatever you want to call it, is going back to like what you were saying about advice for young people. I think it's for anyone, man. Like, yeah, like the world's a dark place right now, but only if you look to the darkest corners. You know, if you're constantly just looking at the things that are going right and the things that you can control and the good in your life, then you can start to control the bad things and you can manipulate your life to suit and you can improve the areas that need work. But there is so much that we can't control right now, right? So why focus on it? Focus on what you can control. And I think that's what's going to make all of this for the, like, let's face it, man, we're going to be going around this circle for at least another 12, 18 months or longer. That's what's going to make this manageable for people, you know? Focus on what you have, not what you don't have, the things that you can do, not what you can't do, and focus on what you can control, not what you can't. That's the fight game, right? That's the fight mentality. Focus on what you can control. You don't know what the other guy's going to do. You can't make him throw a right kick so you can catch and sweep. You know what I mean? So, and that's the same thing with the world right now. It's crazy, right? You can't say, but I need this vaccination. Well, you can't control that. So focus what you can control. Work on yourself and everything else will fall into place.
I love that, brother. Thank you so much for your time,
Thanks,
man.
bro. Thank you, man. It's a
real
pleasure.
pleasure.